This is Grapplers Talk.
What is up, fans of Grapplers Talk? This is Dave coming at you with another awesome episode. Each and every week, thank you guys for downloading the podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Wherever you're tuning in, whether it's Instagram, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I don't care. Thank you guys for all the support we get. We're excited for this episode. We have a very awesome young competitor in the studio with us. I've seen this guy over the past at least year really make a name for himself, really have some tough matches out there and perform really well. So I wanted to get him on just to talk about his story. I'm going to have you introduce yourself. I've said his name Ismael, but how do you really pronounce it?
It's pronounced Ismael Alvarez-Bermudez. But yeah, Ismael is normally a little bit easier for everybody. So
yeah,
that's okay too.
That's a cool way to say it, dude. Like, we had Mateus on, and he's from Argentina, and so he said his name like he pronounced it with an Argentinian accent.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it really was like, wow, dude. It makes me sound like I'm horrible at pronouncing names. I could barely pronounce my name, but once again, thank you for being on the podcast, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be a part of this, man. And just wanted to have you on to go over your journey through martial arts, your journey through grappling even. You started at a really young age, and so let's get into that. When did you start grappling? Was it jiu-jitsu, or did you get into wrestling first, or how did it become what it is now?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thank you for the invite. It's awesome to be here. But I started when I was 12. My middle and high school actually didn't have wrestling, so I didn't have that opportunity. I probably would have tried to wrestle in high school. But yeah, I started at Felipe Bragio, BJJ. It was in Sacramento, just in a little mat space, like on the side of a pool, like a place that has a pool.
Yeah.
And we just, I started from there out of the blue. I hadn't done martial arts before. I'd done pretty much everything else: soccer, baseball, basketball, rock climbing, gymnastics. And I was like, well, I want to try something new. And it was right behind where the place I did gymnastics was. And so just tried it and never stopped.
Yeah. What did you hear about jiu-jitsu before that? Like, did you watch the UFC or something along those lines, or did you just like see like a martial arts school and say, hey, that'd be cool to get into some sort of martial art?
I had not really watched the UFC. I know my parents used to, but they stopped watching it when I was little. But I was just like, I want to try a martial art. I actually had tried Kovars, like a Kenpo class at Kovars, and then we tried the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu place, and it was just out of the blue.
Yeah.
And then I quickly found out which one I felt was actually cooler than the other.
Right.
But yeah.
And how old were you when you started there?
12.
12.
Yeah.
Okay. And so being a 12-year-old in a jiu-jitsu class, were you training with other kids like that were like at an athletic level, or was it just all kinds of different levels at that point?
The class was pretty much all white belts. We had a few gray belts, like Coach's son. Kainoa was I think he was a gray belt at the time. But I was older than most of them, but I was really small when I was that young. I weighed in for my first tournament, which was a month after I started jiu-jitsu, at 69 pounds. So,
Yeah.
So I was like,
not kilos, guys, pounds.
Right. I was one of the smaller kids in class, despite being one of the oldest.
Yeah.
And so it was just a weird experience, kind of like figuring out that dynamic. And luckily I got to start doing the adults class when I was, I think, around 13. So that was a good opportunity. And then I was, again, just smaller than everybody, but
yeah,
it helped because I was old enough to kind of like understand those techniques.
Yeah.
in addition to the
Mentally,
kids'
like you
class.
could understand all what they're talking about. You know, you may not be the size of the adults to pull off some of them, but
Right.
you can definitely attempt them and perfect them. Being in competition at that young of an age, did you know like right off the bat that you wanted to compete, or how did you get into the competition of that? Did your coach ask you or something like that?
Yeah, Felipe there was a grappling X that was going to be in town and just in Sacramento, and he was like, "Hey, anybody who's interested in doing it?" And I did competitive sports growing up, so I was like, "Oh, why not?" And that first tournament, I had a 3-man bracket, and like 10 seconds, I don't know, 30 seconds into my first match, I was in a rear naked choke. My parents were freaking out on the side. They're like scared that I'm going to get hurt. And I ended up getting out, and just, I won a match. I lost a match, ended up getting second or something. But I remember leaving, and I was just like, this was the coolest thing ever, like coolest thing in the world. And my mom was like, "You're never doing this again." And I was like, I liked it. But,
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And then from there, it just kind of took off. I don't remember how much time before my next tournament, but it wasn't that long.
Yeah. And what was your attitude going in? Like you wanted to just compete as much as possible, or?
I think I just had so much energy when I was a kid that like I was, especially since I did competitive soccer for 5 years. So having a game or a tournament at least every other weekend wasn't like a foreign concept. So it was just kind of similar thing.
Yeah. So taking the same approach like football players play every Sunday, right? During football season. So if you can compete every weekend, why not, right? And doing that really develops your game and gets you a lot better, a lot quicker, because you're getting different looks from different styles, and you're, when you're competing, you're thinking about things, right? You're like, okay, I don't want to get caught in that area of jiu-jitsu, right? So I want to improve, where a kid that's just going in and training is just kind of going in and doing whatever they're shown, or, it's really, there's a huge difference when you're competing, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think that is the biggest reason that I like started really picking things up at the beginning, was just going straight into competition. And that first few months I was actually still doing competitive soccer, so I didn't like immediately pick up everything, but as soon I quickly figured out that I wanted to focus on jiu-jitsu. And then from there I was training like every day on weekends, competing on weekends. And so just the sheer amount of time I was doing kids and adults class, things started getting put together pretty well. Yeah.
And with all these competitions and stuff like that, like it can be a lot on an athlete too. Like, at the same time, you're having fun, you're learning, but like that's also a lot of brutal competitions to go through, and potential injuries that can happen and stuff like that. Did you have any issues or setbacks along the way, or things that may have prevented you from competing for a while, or were you just trying to just stick to it no matter what?
At the beginning, I just kind of just went straight into it. I didn't really have much problems like at white belt, at gray belt. But I was also a very athletic kid. I had a lot of coordination from like doing gymnastics and stuff. And so I was just generally more athletic than the people I was competing against. But like you would see it at like the higher levels, at yellow, at orange. Like I fought Spencer Herr at a grappling X and got my butt kicked. And so like once I started reaching that level where I was like, I no longer have the advantage, the athletic advantage really doesn't make much of a difference anymore, because these people are just genuinely better than me and have been doing it longer. Then you started to see it like start to even out. I didn't really have like injury issues except for like a little bit at yellow belt. I needed to go to physical therapy because I had issues with the cartilage in my hips just from overuse. And my like flexibility and mobility was really bad in my hips. And actually that was cool. Well, it wasn't great, but it led to a cool relationship with, I don't know if you know, Dr. Kickass.
Yeah.
I showed up to a place for physical therapy, and so I talked to the doctor. I'm like, yeah, so I do jiu-jitsu. He's like, oh, I'm a black belt. That's great. And so it was just an awesome relationship.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He's very good at what he does. You know, a lot of people, I've sent people to him, believe it or not. I've never had to see him, thankfully, but I have talked to a friend of mine had an ACL issue, and I sent him to Dr. Kickass first thing. I said, hey, go talk to him first. Okay, let him see your stuff, your MRIs, whatever you have done, right? And go from there, because he knows what he's doing when it comes to for a jiu-jitsu athlete, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so growing up into jiu-jitsu too, like you start to pick things up along the way. You start to develop your game really well. As you continue to go into the adult belts, you keep competing. You never really stop. Were you doing other sports during those times or anything like that? Or was it strictly jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu only?
Yeah, I dropped everything for jiu-jitsu. Like that first 6 months I think I was training, I was still doing the competitive soccer. But after that, it was just all jiu-jitsu all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, you were talking earlier about your gymnastics background, right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, it was like a once a week recreational thing, but it just helped with like my body control and my coordination and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Like, it's a good foundation to have, right?
Sure.
I worked at a school, and there's this kid that did gymnastics there, and the kid could bust out a backflip at any point in time. Like, I'd be like, do a backflip, and he'd just do one right there. And it was so sick. And he was really into the rings and things of that nature with it. But I was talking to him. I was like, dude, like, you're really good at that. Like, it seems effortless to you. And he started getting into jiu-jitsu, and he was doing really well with his jiu-jitsu at a young age. So, like, how do you feel like the translation is with doing something like gymnastics, or what do you feel like the best sport, since you played a lot of sports, like would be transferable to going into jiu-jitsu?
I think gymnastic has got to be one of the better ones. It's just learning how to move your body in that way is something that a lot of other sports just can't really replicate. I think that's got to be a great base. Obviously, wrestling probably has one of the best bases for jiu-jitsu. But I really don't know if I could name another sport that would have better translation than either of those two.
Right. Did you wrestle much at all, like, or think about wrestling in high school?
So
like with your friends, like, I mean, were you wrestling around with the wrestling team at all?
Yeah, we didn't actually have a wrestling team. They got rid of the wrestling team 2 years before I went to that high school. So if I had wanted to wrestle, I would have had to like go to a different high school to do that. And it was just,
that's
I'm like,
a lot.
well, I'll just keep doing jiu-jitsu. It's fine.
Yeah. That's a lot to do, just to wrestle in high school. That's a bummer. So going through the scene, like you get into the, you were talking adult juvenile scene, of blue belt. What were you like trying to accomplish with jiu-jitsu, even in those early belts? Like obviously the kids belts, you're going to learn a lot, and it's really to learn and develop and really get together your stuff. But once you get to blue belt, there's things like worlds and stuff that you might want to compete in. Did you have anything in the line of sight that was keeping you training, or were you just trying to kill it on the local scene?
I was just trying to stay active. I know a lot of people are like, dude, I'm in this to be a world champion. That wasn't really my long-term goal when I was doing it. Juvenile blue belt was hard because of COVID was the end of my juvenile 1 year to the beginning of juvenile 2. I went 13 months without training jiu-jitsu just because parents wanted to keep me at home, stuff like that. But yeah, 13 months. And so what I would do was once the gym opened back up, I would call in and FaceTime my professor, and he would point me so I could watch and do the technique. I had a grappling dummy, and every day I was just in my room doing jiu-jitsu from there. Once I got back, man, getting back into competitions was hard. Like those first few were rough. And like, especially since I went from pre-COVID, like being 110 to post-COVID being 140, but like out of shape. I had to get back into shape. Ended up getting back down to like 130, and then from there, like actually putting on like muscle and stuff from there. So just like getting the weight right and getting back into the groove was really tough. But I mean, that juvenile 2 year, I went back balls to the wall because I'm like, I got to get back into this again. Because I was going nuts. I was going nuts without jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. A lot of people do, right?
For sure. And the goal when I came back was that June, I was like, I'm going to do Worlds this year. So I worked with the nutritionist and everything. Ended up making weight for light feather, which for juvenile is 129 in the gi. And I mean, I had a small bracket, I had a 5-man bracket, but I was able to win that year. And so that was just like that. Coming back and getting into that was like, it helped a lot with the confidence. Yeah. I'm like, I'm back, and that it was awesome to be back.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you about your diet. Now, you said you worked with a nutritionist. What was it like? Were they just working on like your diet and how it should be built, or how was that like?
So the main idea was, because I needed to get down, I think it was like 8 pounds, which I was already pretty skinny, so there wasn't a ton to drop. But the goal was to shed as much body fat without sacrificing too much muscle. So it was just like a little bit of a caloric deficit, but still high protein, and then mostly low carb. And I ended up making the weight. But that was like, I don't go back into doing all that stuff. I don't really cut that much weight normally. So
yeah. It's not good. I talked about it with somebody on the podcast. Like, it's not good for especially younger guys to be going into those dehydration modes and trying to really cut a lot of weight. Like, a lot of guys try to do that now in the bigger scene, you know, in the big IBJJF tournaments, and it's like they're killing themselves to get to those points where I don't think it's really necessary with jiu-jitsu. You're not getting strikes, you know, it's a little bit different. It's more of a strength thing, right?
Yeah, for sure. I don't really cut water. The main thing that I do if I'm dieting down to drop weight is I just do no carb or super low carb, and I can swing quite a bit of weight in 2-3 weeks. The most I'll cut of water is like a pound, 2 pounds. And it's just to like, oh, I got to get the gi weight off or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't like to cut water. I don't like how it feels. I feel like my brain moves slow. And I feel like that's one of the thing that's good about my jiu-jitsu is I feel like I'm pretty quick. I make good decisions in general.
You brought up a very good point. Your brain moves slower, right? When you cut that kind of weight, it dries out the brain too. Like it definitely has an effect. And with jiu-jitsu, you're thinking constantly, right? It's like you don't get a point to not really think. You're relying on your training, but you're also playing the chess game of jiu-jitsu. Yeah. So to do that to your mind, I don't think is probably that good, right?
Yeah, definitely not.
It can't be. Do you have a preference on like gi or no gi, or what's your training like? How do you separate it? How many days a week are you doing each?
It's funny. I get this question a lot, even just from like training partners. And I think it just fluctuates. Like, most of the matches that I'm able to get are no gi just cause that's the thing right now. I'm having a lot of fun in the gi right now. It really just, it goes back and forth. I'll focus a ton on the gi and then I'll focus a ton on no gi. But when I'm in Berkeley, most of the time it's training in the gi. When I'm here, most of the time it's more no gi. But I try to keep it balanced. Yeah, like if I have a big no gi fight coming up, I'll just talk to Professor in Berkeley and be like, hey, I need to get no gi rounds. Yeah. And he always makes sure that somebody kicks my butt in no gi.
So talk to me about how it is going from like Sacramento, where you set up a good network of friends, of people in the jiu-jitsu community, to go off to college, right? And in Berkeley, and kind of have to reestablish it a little bit. You got to find a new home gym. You got to find new training partners that really get you, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about how that was, getting used to that.
It was definitely tough.
Or how it is, right? It's still pretty new.
Yeah, it was definitely tough at the beginning. It was cool though, because I visited before I was a student at Berkeley, just because I wanted to find a place that I would like. And luckily, it's only like 2 miles from my apartment in Berkeley, so it's close enough that I can ride my bike. But yeah, it was definitely tough to just show up and like not know anyone. But now I have a solid group of training partners, and they have so many black belts over there. Like they did a belt promotion not too long ago. I think it was, I don't know, within the last 6 months, and they gave like 11 black belts. Like the amount of people they have on the mats over there is insane. And fortunately, that means there's also smaller people. So one of my main training partners is like 135-pound black belt. And it's awesome because he's doing all these like lapel guards, lasso guards, which is stuff that I'm having a lot of fun in the gi trying to pass right now. So I was able, I roll with people enough, and you kind of just gain that mutual respect, and you enjoy the rolls, and then you kind of create your community from there.
Yeah. And are you looking at a lot of competitions now that you're in school, or you're just trying to focus on a little bit more of the school stuff and take a little bit more time off of competition?
Definitely competition took a little bit of a step back just because, especially when semester starts, I'm like, I need a few weeks to like reacclimate myself to college life. But I'm trying to get back into it more. I'm trying to do November 2nd, whether it's Arte or it's Jiu-Jitsu World League in here. Definitely want to do that one. And then I know that I think the following weekend there's a Grappling X in Reno. So I want to, it's been a little bit too much of a break. I think it's been a few weeks, but yeah.
Yeah. And so we were talking a little bit off air about your last Arte Suave match and your last competition with that. That was a really solid match against a really tough competitor. I was complimenting you and your composure during that match. Like, how do you keep locked in? And like, especially during that match, like it was getting a little chippy in there. Like you were totally locked in. Like you didn't blink an eye at anything that was coming your way. You matched everything, and then you were able to come away with the belt. And again, a really tough match. Talk to me about your composure and how you keep zoned in. How do you keep that zen?
Yeah, I have no idea. It's just it's something that I've done even when I was younger. That it's just, I don't know. I stay focused. I feel like I'm always mostly expressionless when I go.
What's going on in your mind when you're in a match?
That's a great question. Most of the time, I don't even really notice it. On times maybe where I'm more nervous, I feel like I feel myself thinking more, but I kind of don't like it when I think, because then I start to overthink. But yeah, I don't know. A lot of times it's just empty because, I do this so much. I train so much that it's just natural.
It's a habit now, right?
Yeah. I'm sure you understand. You've been training for a long time too.
Yeah.
Right. It's just,
oh yeah,
it is. You don't even have to think, it just is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You kind of lock into that place, right? And you don't need to use the mind so much. Like when you do need to, you can, right? You can lock into something, and if you're having trouble figuring something out. But yeah, it's always interesting to hear a competitor like what goes on, and like do you get pre-fight nervous or anything like that? Are you struggling in the back? I hear some people cry before, and some people get really locked in and get all pissed off, and some people are just there chilling and they're completely like zenned out. So like, how are you going in, like backstage, your warm-up preparation, all that?
Yeah. I definitely used to get nervous pretty bad when I was like in the kids' belts and stuff like that. I think I've just done it enough times now that I really don't get nervous unless it's a big thing. Like, I'm sure if I went to Worlds, I would be nervous as hell, especially at brown belt now. But it's just more of the same. You know what I mean? It's another day at the office. I've gone on the competition mats enough times that I try not to overthink. I try not to think about it at all. In fact, when preparing, especially for super fights, I try not to like do research on people, just because like I want to have an idea of what's going to go on, but like, are they going to pull guard or are they going to try and take me down, sort of thing. But I don't want to watch. I try not to overthink. I feel like I don't really get nervous anymore, just because done it enough.
Who would you say that is someone in the jiu-jitsu scene that you look up to or model your game like, and why would you say that?
Look up to Chris Vickers. Easy answer, Chris Vickers. He wears it on his sleeve. He's all about that grind. Just every day doing the most that he can to get as good as he can, right? He has this thing he calls it the 1%er club, just trying to get 1% better every day. So I want to be able to model my like mindset after him for sure. In terms of model my game, that's a tough question because there's so many people that like I take little bits and pieces from, like from my original professor, Felipe, who actually isn't in California anymore. He opened up a spot in Hawaii, to like some of the guys from Berkeley. And then I cross-trained at a place, Fabio Prado, BJJ in Dixon a lot when I was younger. So I took like some parts of my top game from there. A lot of my guards from Felipe. But it's just a lot of my no-gi stuff will be from, like I have some leg stuff from Lou Carria, Zach Striplin, who's one of Felipe's black belts. It's just, I mean, a little bit from everywhere. Yeah.
So you kind of molded your own style and based off of the great talent that was around you.
Yeah, right? For sure.
That's awesome. That's a good way to do it. Do you follow the major jiu-jitsu scene or any of the guys on the major circuit?
Yeah, on the major circuit. Yeah.
Give me your thoughts on the ramp. The what it's called, the
wall.
alley.
Yeah,
I don't know what they call it. There's so many different names. Karate Combat has their own name for it, and but the ramp's in jiu-jitsu now on the side, right? Are you a fan of that? Do you think we're going to see more of it in jiu-jitsu thing, or do you think it's just a fad that's going to go away and everyone's going to be like, all right, man, that was stupid when we did that?
I think it's interesting. I would want to train on it before I competed on it. But I think it's still on the up right now, honestly. If you've heard of Roll With It, it's a promotion out of San Francisco. They have a card coming up in November, and they're supposedly going to have the walls. And I know Submission Pro Tour was talking about potentially doing it.
A lot of people are.
I think it'd be cool. I don't know. I'd want to play around on it before I make a decision.
Yeah. I mean, it's good for guys. I mean, I think you would have no problem with it, knowing your style. And like, I've seen you're pretty athletic. Like you can do a lot with that wall and do some damage with it. But you know, it's interesting. Like, the Tackett brothers, you know, they were some of the first to put one of those walls in their gym for the CJI one. And now more and more gyms are getting them. You're seeing them pop up in tournaments all over the country. Like I seen a tournament out in Washington, and Helena competed in it, I believe. But they had the walls.
Yeah,
they had the walls. So it was like, okay, this thing's getting popular. I think it's good to a point, but it also kills, like, unless you got elevated seating, right? It kind of kills the entertainment for the audience value. But you know, some of those things, like I like the fight to win elevated stage. I think that's cool. But the walls kind of block that, so it'd be a little bit different of an experience.
Yeah, for sure.
You really got to dial that in from an entertainment or promoter standpoint, I guess, to make that decision. Yeah. And then you got to worry about safety, right? All these people are, you know, they can't go on a wall and it collapse halfway through. Yeah. You know, that's a big danger. You're seeing people like jump off of it on their entrance now and do like flips into the rings. Yeah. And I don't know, man. It's cool to see, but I think we might see a little bit more of it over the next few years. Mm-hmm. So, are you a fan of like anybody as far as like the CJI and the ADCC? Did you have a preference on which one you watched, or what was your take on that whole situation, having them the same weekend?
So we went to ADCC. We had the tickets, so we're gonna go to ADCC. But then
it was good. ADCC was good, man.
It was awesome. Honestly, my favorite person coming out of ADCC is Adeli Fornerino. Like that was one of the coolest things to see live. That being said, we did go back to the hotel and immediately watch CJI after getting back.
That was the cool thing. It was readily available on YouTube and all over the place. You could just go back. All right, watch it again. You could still watch it again, man. Like,
I mean, I'm kind of mad. I'm kind of mad at Craig for putting the athletes in that position that we didn't get to see. Like, we didn't get to see Tackett versus Mika at ADCC. You know what I mean? And that would have been awesome. Yeah. So it definitely messed up some of the matchups I was looking
Even
forward
the
to.
rematch with Rotolo and Mika, like that would have been another good one to see.
For sure. So I was disappointed to not be able to get to see that, but I mean, it was still an awesome weekend of jiu-jitsu. It was super cool.
Incredible. Like having both of those go on at the same time. Like my wife was so irritated with me because I was just nonstop drilled into jiu-jitsu, and I was like, "Hey, it's for the podcast. I got to do this, right?" And it's great, man. Like and even for the local scene, like I'd love to see more competitions pop up and things like that. Not to like put each other in a competition like head on head, but like just we want to see more of this in the community. These things can sell out every weekend. They're here, so you might as well continue to push for them and make them happen. And if they're gonna put up walls, put up the walls, right? I'm ready to see it.
Yeah.
So
there's definitely guys on the local scene that would do some crazy stuff.
Yeah, dude.
Off the walls.
Imagine Will like running off those walls and doing something, dude. Like he's pretty athletic as well. Like
no, I'm thinking Josiah Tubby on the walls would be crazy.
Yeah,
I would want to see that.
There's lots you can do, man. Seeing the coolest thing is the karate combat. Like I think they're the originators of it because karate combat was doing jiu-jitsu or grappling matches. So, man, those strikers when they get in against that wall, like they kind of get pinned up and they get stuck. They can't move and they're getting laid back and getting dropped. So, I mean that wall is intense. Either whether you're grappling or doing jiu-jitsu in it. Do you keep up with like UFC fights or anything like that?
Yeah. I'm not like, I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge or anything, but we like to watch the pay-per-views and even the fight nights whenever we can.
Yeah. Who's your favorite UFC fighter?
This might be kind of basic right now, but Du Bronx.
Yeah.
I mean, he's so good.
Yeah.
I just love watching him. Actually, a new guy, maybe this is a bandwagon, but Diego Lopez.
Okay.
I want to see him. I want to see him fighting for the title.
Yeah.
Eventually.
He's
not
probably
yet.
not far from it.
Yeah.
A few more wins under his belt, and he should probably get a match.
Yeah. I'm excited for Ilya versus Holloway.
Yeah. That should be a
sick.
good one. Yeah. Holloway's so good right now, man. Like, he's incredible to watch, man. Like the older he gets, the better he gets.
Yeah. I mean, who knocks out Justin Gaethje?
The way he did it too, cold. Like it was like, whew, man. There was fire in those punches, man.
Yeah.
Like, like some guys, like Chuck Liddell, he had a lot of power and stuff like that. But even he kind of lost a little bit of his luster towards the end. And Max, man, it's like he looks like a completely different fighter at the different weight. His body's shaped a little different, He's got more shoulders and he's always had that longer frame too. Like even being at the 45 weight class, he's still got a long frame for that. So I've always been a huge fan of Max. So what are your future goals for competition, for jiu-jitsu? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now in the jiu-jitsu scene?
Man,
are you gonna go up for ADCC trials or anything like that?
Oh, for sure. I didn't do the last one. I definitely but I was there because I did the open and I got to watch some of the trials. And I'm like, I got to do this next time. So yeah, definitely interested in doing the next one. I'm not going into it with an expectation of anything, honestly, but I think it'd just be awesome. Like there's a guy that I fought when I was a kid who fought who did he fight? Barrett Yoshida at trials, which is insane. He's like 19-year-old kid fought Barrett Yoshida. He lost, but I mean,
still it's on your resume now,
right? Like that's awesome. That would be so cool. And like seeing Gio flying scissor takedown some dude into a heel hook. It's just it'd be awesome to participate in that.
Yeah. No, it would be tight. You never know too. Like say you get in, right? That's all you got to do is you got to get in. You got to get into the competition somehow. Yeah. So, I mean, nowadays, like you see guys like Michael Pixley. He got in, right? Yeah, yeah. He did well. And then he got in against one of the best in the world against Miragali and destroyed him.
Yeah.
So, Did you happen to catch that last match with Michael Pixley and Nicky Rodriguez?
I didn't watch it. However, going into it, I was like, well, Nicky Rod is going to win by rear naked choke. And so after it happened, I was at school. I remember I pulled up Instagram because I'm like, well, it's got to be over by now. I saw that he won by rear naked choke. Like,
yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. It's I was a little bummed out with it. Like I felt like the rule set it just didn't work out in Michael Pixley's favor. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of stalling warnings and they're really going for that like pursuing the action thing, right? Especially in UFC Fight Pass.
Yeah.
And it was like, I mean, within seconds, both of them are getting warned for, and I'm like, let them get you. I mean, these are high level guys. You got to give them a filling out process. You can't just expect these guys to just do like flying triangles or some stupid shit like that. Yeah. You want to make sure that like, you're going to go into this safely, but, and it started getting under Michael Pixley's skin, it seemed like. So in my opinion, I'd like to see the match under a different rule set to where they can actually wrestle a little bit. They'll give them a chance to, set up takedowns and not just force them into this weird, rushing game.
Yeah. Was the submission in overtime or in regulation?
It might have been in, I want to say it might have been in overtime, but he was down on points because they like deducted a bunch of points for stalling and then Nicky Rod started getting position on him and getting a ton of points, and it was a really weak. I didn't like the rules. I just wasn't a fan of that. I mean, I'm all for having action in jiu-jitsu, right? And there's a time and a place for it. But when you're talking to two wrestlers and they can barely set up grips, like against two high level, I mean, each one of them's high level. So you want to make sure you're setting up good, strong takedowns and you're not just throwing shit at the wall.
Yeah.
So, for me, like I'd rather see a little bit more of a like leniency in the stalling warnings because it really started to frustrate Pixley. So, but there was definitely some good matches on that card. Like I like UFC Fight Pass getting in the jiu-jitsu scene, and it's another outlet for guys. There's ADCC, there's Fight Pass Invitational, there's all these big Fight to Win, and all these bigger companies popping up. CJI even Karate Combat. There's really a future for the grapplers like you.
Yeah.
Do you want to continue to compete in grappling, like in this long run of jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I mean, I want to compete forever, basically, as long as I can. I don't have like this long-term goal of I will be a black belt world champion one day. You know what I mean? But I definitely am interested in continuing to compete, even at the bigger tournaments and stuff like that. I think long-term goal is also potentially own a gym someday.
Careful what you wish for.
I really like to teach, both jiu-jitsu and like academically. That's part of what I'm going to school for. So at Berkeley, I'm a math major and I have a minor in what's called Cal Teach, where I'll graduate with a teaching credential. Wow. In K through 12.
It's awesome.
So theoretically, right out of college, I can go straight into a classroom, and that's the vision right now. Just because it's there, it's tangible, I can almost reach it. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, teaching jiu-jitsu, I was running the 4 through 10-year-old class at the gym in Sacramento when I was 16. So I mean, I've been teaching for a while.
Do you feel like it makes your game quite a bit better by teaching it?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And when teaching, you kind of notice things that you didn't really expect that you'd have to explain. And it's just like having to explain little steps that you kind of just do naturally just makes you more conscious of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's very true. Like you're breaking it down. You're actually thinking about every single little part of the movement instead of, just like, all right, advancing to here and opening up their guard. Like, you got to break it down step by step for them, especially for kids too. It's different. Like, with adults, you can explain things in different ways. You can relate things to cars or, whatever it is. Right. But with kids, they're more like, you sometimes really got to work with them over and over with certain things. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah, especially with the really young ones. Oh, it's tough. It's really tough. You learn a lot of patience for sure. I think in general, I like teaching adults more. Because they get it and they appreciate it so much more because they're like, well, I'm here to learn. And when they start picking things up, it like actually blows their minds.
Right.
But the kids are just fun. Like
Yeah.
I can't go a kids class without laughing.
Yeah.
Just,
Something funny's always going on in kids classes.
for sure.
Do you coach the kids in competitions as well?
Yeah. So I have like 4 or 5 students right now that are, that like I do privates with and stuff like that. And so I'll try and make it to those tournaments when I can. If I'm competing, I'll try and get there early to coach them. Yeah, I mean, they're doing good. It's awesome to see them grow. Like they were all white belts when they started, and now they're gray belts and having new challenges and stuff like that. They're learning the hard way.
Oh yeah.
They're getting those losses, and it's sad.
Yeah.
But it's awesome.
It's part
'cause
of it,
They're
right?
growing up literally, and growing in jiu-jitsu is really awesome to watch.
Yeah, it's part of those hard growing pains of losing tough matches and the little things that happen in jiu-jitsu it's part of it though for the development. They need that to experience like, hey, this isn't an easy journey. I'm not going to get that instant gratification. I got to work on these moves. I got to practice these moves, right? Kids are always a fun thing, seeing them out there competing and finding themselves in the competition scene. There's a ton of them out there nowadays. Like I trained with this kid and he went to Brazil for like a month and came back and he was submitting all these adults and like kids learn so quickly. Like they really do. Like it's incredible how fast they pick things up and some that are really driven to compete in jiu-jitsu are going to be even better, at that young of an age. Yeah.
Having a kid be actually like really devoted to something, I feel like it's not super common, but when it's there, it's awesome to see, like just to have complete motivation for something.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like, there's so many different things nowadays to distract a kid, right? There's tons of sports they could get into. There's girls, there's things on their phone, like TikTok videos. They could get into making TikTok videos all day long, right?
Yeah.
But if somebody gets into jiu-jitsu, right, and they nerd out and they're watching the YouTube videos when they're, not training and trying to train as much as possible, those kids are going to be good. And you were probably one of those kids,
Yeah.
Getting down with it. Do you feel like what's some of the benefits that you've had of training at Ralph Gracie Berkeley so far? I know you mentioned they have a lot of black belts, a lot of talent. Was it like a no-brainer for you? Like, hey, this gym feels like the right fit, or did you struggle with that in finding that place?
It was definitely a no-brainer once I went and tried a class with them, just because seeing the room was awesome. They were the black belts that I train with now were still brown belts then, but even I started there when I was just freshly purple belt, so it was still like, these guys have been training way longer than me. They know way more than me, and so being able to have that environment was super cool. I think it's a very competition focused school. A lot of them are masters competitors, but the entire gym gets together and works together to prepare for like even just a Jiu-Jitsu World League Stockton, right? So it's cool. Well, we're kind of all in it together, and to have a large amount of people competing just kind of helps more with like that environment. And they'll even send people to Brasileiros and Europeans and stuff like that. I haven't been able to make it out to any of those yet, but that's a goal after school. After school is done and I have I have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, you're in a place where there's a lot of different people coming in and out, and a lot of different knowledge, to gain from that school. And Ralph Gracie Berkeley has been a legendary school for a very long time. I know it's a lot different now than it was years ago, but it's still a respected school across this country, even in my opinion. Years ago, is it the same building where he was back then, or did he move locations?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I know he's got a lot of schools opening up all over different areas of the Bay Area, right?
Yeah. They had Vacaville, Berkeley, San Francisco. San Francisco's HQ, right?
Yeah.
Richmond, I think. Yeah, they had a lot of stuff in the Bay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Do you cross train at the other gyms a lot, or are you just mainly at the one by your school and by your apartment?
Just mainly at the one by my school. If I'm gonna cross train, it's normally like with Chris and with Vickers and stuff like that. So like I'll go to New Creation in Benicia, or 10th Planet Walnut Creek. So I've been to Tempe Stockton also a few times. So
okay,
yeah.
Do you like the 10th Planet system? Like, give me your take on how you feel about like their setups, their moves. They got those dead orchards and buggy chokes and different things they're always trying. And
I'm a fan. I love the 10th Planet system. It's so cool. I started picking up doing dead orchards. I think the first dead orchard I hit was at Orange Belt, and it was kind of on accident. But one day Chris saw me at a tournament, which we didn't really know each other until we just realized, hey, I keep seeing you at tournaments. Yeah. And so we started to talk, but he's like, oh, you hit dead orchards? I'm like, I guess so. I didn't know what it was, and so he taught me how to do it. And right now I'm at 42 dead orchards in competition. So yeah, really into that for sure.
That's pretty remarkable, man. Like, do you ever go up against like other 10th Planet guys and like, guys that are constantly training in that system? And, is it like a crazy back and forth match with the 10th Planet guy, or? Yeah,
I can think of, I fought a 10P San Jose or San Mateo brown belt at the last roll with it. And it kind of turned it into just a leg lock battle. And then I fought a guy from HQ in LA at, have you heard of Miho BJJ? It's down in SoCal, San Luis Obispo. And I fought, back at Purple Belt, I fought him there. And he kept trying to leg lock me. I was like, I ended up winning that one on points, just Pat was able to pass his guard. But in general, I'll keep it in the back of my mind if I'm fighting a 10P guy, like, it'd be really cool to dead orchard this guy. But yeah.
How do you lock into a competition? I know we were talking about your mindset earlier, and like you said, I like to just stay clear-minded. Are you in the back? Are you listening to music, or what's your like status, like getting ready to come out into a match?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have, and I preach this to my students, and it's partially because of my dad. Like way back when I was playing baseball, that we had this thing of like have the same routine when you step up to the plate, just because it helps you lock in. So I do the same thing for jiu-jitsu. Like I have words that I tell myself in my head. I always make sure that I listen to the same song before a competition.
What's the song?
Protect Your Neck, Wu-Tang Clan.
Okay.
It's also my walkout song for all the super fights.
Very cool.
But I have that song. I try to do the same warm-up. But yeah, I just try to do the same thing before every match. And it kind of just prevents me from like overthinking things, I don't have to think because it's the same routine, and then going back onto the competition mat.
Yeah, it's good. Like everyone's a little bit different when it comes to that, right? Yeah. Some people want the same, song playlist. Some people need a Four Loko will. No, some people, you never know what they're gonna need, right, to get into the zone. But some people are back there and they're super quiet. They're all zenned out. Yeah. They're doing their stretching. Facing a wall, looking at nothing. So. There's no right or wrong way to do it. What would you tell somebody that wants to get into jiu-jitsu fresh from nothing? They've never trained jiu-jitsu before, but they really need it in their lives.
Oh man, I'd try and get people to come to jiu-jitsu with me all the time. Like other students, I'm like, hey, come try it out. It'd be a lot of fun. And they're like, you just want an excuse to beat me up. And I'm like, okay,
That's what
whatever.
everyone thinks, right?
Yeah.
Like, you just want to choke me, right?
But man, it did so much for me. Partially, I think because like growing up and like just with mental health stuff and self-confidence stuff, like it made a big difference to have jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely.
And I think in general for people who even might have that in adulthood, it's really helpful for that. I just really, I'm like, guys, come try it, please. Just try it. You know, you don't have to like it. And honestly, you might not the first class, but I think
even the second and third too.
right, I'm like, just give it a chance. It's because it really is a special thing. And I think like just the community too is kind of, nobody's trying to really hurt new people either. And so a lot of people are scared of that. Like, oh, but what if I get hurt? It's not what we're here to do. You know what I mean? It's just, yeah, be a part of the community. Try it out.
Yeah, everyone has a life outside of the jiu-jitsu community too. You know, some of us are college students like yourself. Some of us do construction for a living, right? So they have to go to work. Some of us are business owners too. So it's like you can't really miss time off of work, right? You own your own business. So getting hurt isn't something any jiu-jitsu practitioner's trying to do or trying to inflict on anyone else, right? Most guys, if they accidentally injure somebody, they feel really, really bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And jiu-jitsu guys will beat themselves up over it. So knowing that, you know, is important. You know, try it out. Like, it'll change your life. It'll make you a stronger human being in general, right?
For sure.
And you mentioned mental health, like what it does for, especially, I mean, I always say men don't talk about that kind of stuff, right? We just, you know, we try and kind of just wear our feelings on our sleeve and that's it. And boom, boom. And, you know, like we don't get into like, oh yeah, you know, this is what I was thinking about the other day. I'm really down.
Yep.
You know, we just kind of deal with it and go on. And so having an outlet and having a way to express some energy and, you know, use your mind for a little bit and get your mind off of what you have going on in the world, right? Screw the world. I don't think about one thing when I'm on those mats. Like, I'm just focused on jiu-jitsu. I could care less, right? If you know, bill collectors are calling, I could care less what's going on in the world. Like, there could be bombs going off somewhere. I don't know, because I'm so dialed in, right?
Yeah.
And once I get off the mats, I'll find out everything that needs to be found out, right? But when I'm training, I'm dialed in. And, you know, it's important that us people, we have that outlet and that way to express that kind of energy. And they stay positive with it, right? And get the encouragement from the homies in the scene, right?
Yeah.
There's good people out there in the jiu-jitsu scene and real positive people. And it's awesome to see like friends develop and you know, relationships from other schools. Like these people don't even train together and they're good buddies. So the jiu-jitsu scene is very loving, you know, and it's good to see. And, you know, it's good to see like young men like you come up in this scene and develop their game and develop who they are. And now you're a true martial artist. Like, you hold yourself like a martial artist. You're not cocky, anything like that. You're a very humble human being. And most jiu-jitsu guys are, from what I talk to a lot of them out there. So it's really awesome to hear that and kind of see that develop. What's on the horizon next for you when it comes to competition? Is it that November card that you're looking at?
Yeah, that's definitely the next one, whether it's Art Day or I think Don's trying to get me a match on there. I don't know if it's going to be defending the belt. I think it's somebody at a different weight, but we'll see what happens.
What championship do you hold with them?
It's the brown belt 145.
No gi?
Just in general,
Okay.
I think because Don said that the way they do it is you defend it in both, and it just kind of depends on the match. So definitely interested in defending it in the gi.
Yeah.
I'm having a lot of fun with the gi right now. So, yeah. So brown 145, or if that doesn't end up happening, probably Jiu-Jitsu World League.
Yeah, that'd be good, man. And, everything that you have going on, man, and hearing like your story of coming up in the jiu-jitsu scene, dude, I wish you nothing but like success and all of your competitions. It's important that you chase whatever your dream is, right? Everyone's got a different journey in jiu-jitsu. And if you like drilling all the time, go drill all the time. If you like competing all the time, go compete all the time, right? If you're there for friends, make some friends, right? Jiu-jitsu is different for everyone, right? And everyone has their own journey they go through, and it's important that we follow our own journey and our own pathway, and develop our journey the way we want. And you're doing great, man. And I just want to give you a few minutes to shout out any of your friends, any of your homies, any of your training partners. Go ahead and take the floor. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I wrote it down. I have a lot of names that I want to get through. Starting off, obviously, thank you to my parents and girlfriend. They support me in everything I do, and really that support is irreplaceable. I would not be able to, do it at the magnitude that I do without these people. Thank you, and shout out to my professors. Started with Felipe Bragial, working now with Eduardo Fraga, and then Zach Striplin is the one who's one of the people who's running classes in Sacramento that I'll attend. My training partners from Carlson Gracie, Sacramento, like Derek Bulldog, Jojo, and then from Half Gracie Berkeley, especially Doug and Don. Fabio Prado, the Team Alpha BJJ family, like Vacaville and Fairfield. I cross-train with Rich Goodwin at New Creation, Manny Gonzalez, Half Gracie Sacramento, Alex Kanders at Tempe Walnut Creek, and then guys from Tempe Stockton. Special shout-out, Luke Area, made a big difference in my leg game. So if anybody's interested in that, hit up his leg lock workshops. He's always posting about it. It was a really awesome course to attend, and definitely highly recommend. Shout out to my students and all the monster hunters. And then, of course, last but not least, like Mr. I'm Hunting Monsters, Chris Vickers. He's a brother. He's a mentor, professor, right? He honestly, he pushes me more than I think I can. I think I can be pushed. He thinks I'm way better at jiu-jitsu than I actually am. But yeah, I wish that I could like have his mindset, and he's an awesome dude.
Yeah. I've seen you, the way he coaches you, man. Like he's got so much love in his coaching, and the way he talks, and like some people may see the extravagant personality and just see that, but man, he really he attaches himself to you guys, and he takes those wins and losses real hard and real strong,
Yeah.
And but you could definitely see that relationship, and he seems like a very good guy. I haven't gotten to talk to him yet, but we're definitely in the works, and we're definitely going to talk to him down the road and get him on here.
Yeah, he is one of the most generous people I know, just like with his time, his effort. So yeah, I really value that relationship with him.
Yeah, it's important we have people like that, and it's crazy. Jiu-jitsu develops those relationships, and keeps those things. Like my best friends to this day, we all met in jiu-jitsu, and it doesn't matter what's going on in life. We're there for each other. Yeah. So, you got to have those kind of people around you. And, man, it's been awesome getting to know you a little bit, man, and having you on. And I'm excited to see more of you in the competition scene, dude. You're an incredible athlete, man. And, like I said, I was real impressed, watching you compete, and man, the way you just kept that composure in, man, it was real incredible to see someone your age and be able to compose himself like that, and not get carried away and pulled into the match that wasn't his game, right?
Yeah.
You played your game, and it worked successfully for you. So keep it up, man. I wish you nothing but success, and thank you for being on, man.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, and all of the fans of Grapplers Talk, we thank you for downloading each and every episode. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Check us out all over the place. Tell your friends, tell your training partners about Grapplers Talk, and we will see you next week. I'm Dave, and we
This is Grapplers Talk.